This Saturday is UFC 313, Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev for the light heavyweight title, and this is going to be my full card predictions. If you've been wondering where my prediction videos have been, the last couple weeks I've been sporadic with content. Unfortunately, I had an unexpected death in my family, but we're back to doing prediction videos for UFC 313. We have a newly added co-main event. After Dan Hooker fell out, we are now getting Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev 2. And this is a really solid UFC pay-per-view card. Mainly, I absolutely love this main event. Pereira versus Ankalaev is finally happening. Let's jump right into it. The very first fight of the night, which apparently was just added literally within the last couple minutes, that I did not research and did not know was on the card until about a minute ago. It's Chris Gutierrez versus John Castañeda. I guess it was thrown on the card because there was only 11 bouts. I don't remember if either one of these guys was originally on the card. But you have John Castañeda, who, has some decent grappling, some decent striking. He's coming off a loss to Daniel Marcos, where he lost via decision, pretty clear cut. Before that, he beat Kyung Ho Kong, Muin Gafarov, lost to Daniel Santos. Gutierrez is hit or miss. He has really good leg kicks, horrible fight IQ. I think it was in the fight against Song Yudong. He's like pulling guard after getting out-grappled the majority of the fight. But listen, I think Gutierrez is a step up for Castañeda. I think Gutierrez is good enough. He's a guy who's been ranked in the bantamweight division before, which is no easy feat. Has really solid striking, really good leg kicks. I think Castañeda is going to try to mix in the grappling and be able to use the grappling effectively against Gutierrez. They're both 33 years old. Gutierrez is almost 34. They're both kind of trading wins and losses. But listen to the level of opposition, Gutierrez is fighting. He's losing to Song Yudong. He's losing to Pedro Munoz. Where Castañeda, losing to Daniel Marcos, losing to Daniel Santos, they're not horrible losses by any means. But it's not like the elite of the elite like Chris Gutierrez has lost to. So I am going to go with... I'm going to say Chris Gutierrez via decision. I haven't really put a lot of thought in this fight. Obviously, I just found out this fight was happening. I'm going to go Gutierrez via decision. I think he leg kicks his way to a decision and is able to defend most of the takedowns from John Castañeda. But honestly, either way wouldn't surprise me. Next fight on the card, we have Ozzy Diaz versus Djorden Santos. I could see this fight going either way. Ozzy Diaz coming off a brutal KO loss against Mingyang Zhang, which was 3 months ago. Before that, a win over Bavon Lewis in LFA. He was formerly on Dana White's Contender Series. He got KO'd by beat Joe Pyfer. And listen, I'm watching Ozzy Diaz back in LFA, and he's even getting out-grappled a bit by Bavon Lewis. Djorden Santos, only one loss, on a long win streak, has decent striking, decent power, decent grappling, and good cardio. I've seen in his fights he's had decent cardio. On Dana White's Contender Series against Will Curry, he had a high output in that fight and still showed good 3-round cardio. And I just don't think Ozzy Diaz is that good. I think they both have decent power. They both have good finishing ability. But I think Djorden Santos is going to be better on the feet. I think Diaz is maybe going to try to grapple. I don't know. I think it's probably going to primarily be standing. Because Diaz, it's not like he really uses the grappling. If anything, he's getting out-grappled. So I don't think he's going to have a grappling advantage. I think Santos could probably out-grapple him. But I think Santos is the better striker as well. So I'm going to pick Djorden Santos to get it done. But he doesn't, and I'm watching his last fight. I watched a couple of his fights. But I watched his last fight and it's not like he has crazy KO power. He was landing at will. And Willie Curry was just still walking forward and shooting some takedowns. And I don't think he had a takedown until like maybe the 3rd round. And then you look at his last few fights, his last 3 fights, all been decisions. Hasn't got a KO in 4 years. So I'm going to say the gritty kind of, not super chinny Ozzy Diaz is able to survive. I'm going to say Djorden Santos wins via a 30-27 decision. Maybe a couple close moments where he rocks him on the feet, tags him on the chin, but Diaz is able to survive. But I don't know. It's a quick return after Mingyang Zhang absolutely brutally KO'd him. But I'm going to go Djorden Santos via decision. Next fight on the card, we have Marion Santos versus Francis Marshall. I'm very, very high on Santos. The Ultimate Fighter winner in his last fight against Con Ofley. Con Ofley's not that good, but Santos proved that he wasn't that good and just absolutely styled on him and eventually had to finish in the 2nd round. Before that was on Dana White's Contender Series. Before that, he was fighting in LFA. His last loss is against Dan Argueta, which was 3 years ago in LFA, where Francis Marshall, his last fight was against Dennis Bazooka, and he was getting touched up in the third round. I even believe he started getting tagged up at the end of the second round and ended up winning a split decision. Now, I thought he won that fight, but he won it primarily with his grappling. Fight before that, got destroyed by Alzik Dalgarian. Fight before that, lost to William Gomez. Fight before that, beat Marcelo Rojo. Fight before that, Conor Matthews on Dana White's Contender Series. Francis Marshall is going to try to grapple. His grappling by no means is like super elite level. Santos has shown decent takedown defense. He's faster. He's the way better striker. He's way more explosive on the feet. I think Santos probably puts him out. I just think he's way too slick on the feet. I think if Marshall wins this fight, it's going to be pressure and takedowns and wrestling. But I don't think Santos is going to wilt to that. And also, I don't trust Marshall's cardio. He was gassing against Dennis Bazooka. Gassing, lost the third round, lost the tail end of the second round. So I'm not going to trust him to come out here against a much more dangerous Marion Santos and be able to implement the wrestling for all 3 rounds. I could even see him, maybe having success in the first round, but then getting pieced up in the second and losing the second and third as well. But I'm going to pick Santos to find a KO. I'm going to pick Santos second round TKO. Far superior striker, nasty power in his hands and his legs, versatile attacks where Francis Marshall just kind of rushes forward, leaves his chin open, and, just tries to implement the wrestling. I'm going to go Santos second round TKO. Next fight on the card, we have Alex Morono versus Carlos Leal. I got to be honest, I think Carlos Leal is probably using PEDs. I hate to speculate on that, but man, his cardio looked unbelievable in his UFC debut against Renat Fakhretdinov. It's a loss, but it was really a win. He even took Renat down. He was landing the better shots. He was stuffing takedowns. He only got really out-grappled in the first round for small periods of time. And, he ended up getting a loss there, but I really think he won in a lot of fans' eyes, and really he showed off his skills. Now, was that because he was short notice and not tested? And maybe he's cycling off? Because, man, did he just look... there's certain... people always talk about physiques. And don't get me wrong, Carlos Leal has a crazy physique. But it's really his ability to just take shots and not really react to them at all. And his cardio is unbelievable cardio. And then you have Alex Morono, who's fallen off a cliff, man. Lost 3 out of his last 4. Lost to Daniel Rodriguez. Lost to Nico Price. Need I say more? Lost to Joaquin Buckley. Not that horrible. His lone win in his last 4 fights is dead body Court McGee. How can you pick Alex Morono? 34 years old. Leal's 30. Arguably entering his prime. Morono seems like he's regressing. As Sean Strickland would say, I regress. But Morono's skill set is regressing. It looks horrible. Morono, what is he going to grapple? Is he going to grapple him? I don't see him grappling him. Morono has decent jiu-jitsu and submission ability. But if Renat's not taking him down and controlling him, Morono's not. Morono's kind of small for the weight class. Morono doesn't have crazy power in his hands. Leal is the better striker. I think Leal wins this fight. I could see Leal putting him away, but Morono's kind of known for his durability a little bit. So I'm going to say Carlos Leal wins a clear-cut 30-27 decision. Next fight on the card, we have Bruno Ferreira versus Armen Petrosyan. I know there's not a lot of huge names on this card, but I still think this is a great card overall from prelims to main card to main event. And Bruno Ferreira, Armen Petrosyan is a really solid prelim. Both guys are quality middleweights. Petrosyan, really good striker. Not the best grappler, but has good takedown defense. Has a win over... No, hold on. Didn't he fight? No, he lost to Rodolfo Vieira. I'm sorry. But yeah, he beat a guy like Christian Leroy Duncan, beat a guy like AJ Dobson, and he got KO'd by Shara Bullet Magomedov. But Petrosyan, he has decent grappling. He has really solid striking. His grappling isn't all that great. But he's able to fend off some takedowns. Bruno Ferreira is really not going to be grappling nonstop. Bruno Ferreira comes out and looks to KO you. He's coming off a loss against Abus Magomedov, a fight where he almost had Abus out of there, and Abus ends up getting an arm triangle. That's kind of a shameful loss. Abus has 1 round of cardio, and somehow Bruno Ferreira loses to him. Before that, KO over Dustin Stolfus, KO over Phil Hawes. Lost to Nora Salt and Ruzaboya, but that was on short notice. I could see this fight going either way. And you know what actually shocked me is Bruno Ferreira has the longer reach. His 72-inch reach to 71-inch reach for Petrosyan, where Petrosyan has a 5-inch height advantage. I just automatically assumed Ferreira had T-Rex arms. It's going to be Petrosyan by decision or Ferreira by KO. I'm going to go Ferreira by KO. Petrosyan's coming off that loss against Shara Bullet Magomedov, who I think is, I don't want to say a scrub, but I don't think he's that good. And if he's stalling on you, I think Bruno Ferreira will find a KO shot. And Petrosyan's more of a volume striker. He's not much of a guy that goes out there and finds finishes. Didn't finish Christian Lever Duncan. Didn't finish AJ Dobson. And, I just think Bruno Ferreira, if he needs to, I think he could mix in the grappling. I'm not saying he's going to have crazy success with the wrestling and jiu-jitsu, but I think he could mix it in if he needs to, just to kind of give him a different look. And just the power, I think, is going to be the difference in this fight, because it's gonna majority stay standing, and I think Ferreira will find that kill shot. I'm gonna go Bruno Ferreira first round KO. Next fight on the card, we have Rei Tsuruya versus Joshua Van. I actually really like this fight. We have 22-year-old Rei Tsuruya versus 23-year-old Joshua Van. Both on winning streaks. Joshua Van had a lot of hype behind him before he got KO'd by Charles Johnson, but looked decent in that fight. And Charles Johnson is kind of a tricky fighter. Rei Tsuruya undefeated 10-0. Primarily grappler. He has decent stand-up, but primarily a grappler. And he wins a decision against Carlos Hernandez. Carlos Hernandez is okay. I don't think he's anywhere close to the skill set of Joshua Van. And Tsuruya was starting to get tired in that third round. Joshua Van builds as the fight goes on. Joshua Van, I think, is the far superior boxer, has excellent body shots, has good takedown defense. And I think Tsuruya is going to try to grapple. He's going to try to take him down and look for submission. That is his style. Now, does he have decent striking? Yes. But I don't think it's close to Joshua Van, who's going to be ripping to the body, ripping upstairs, who is a guy who starts off slow, but as the fight goes on, starts kind of rolling downhill. And I think Van, the striking is going to be too much for Rei Tsuruya. I don't think he can be super competitive on the feet with Joshua Van. He must get the takedown if he wants to win this fight. And you're looking at Joshua Van, Cody Djorden, okay, gets a takedown, doesn't really do much with it. And he's able to get back up and then fend off the takedowns and beat Cody Djorden up. And arguably even won all 3 rounds. I don't remember what the scorecards were, but maybe round 1 went to Djorden. Fight before that, Edgar Chairez. Edgar Chairez is dangerous on the ground. I don't remember. I didn't watch this fight this week, but I believe there was some grappling exchanges, and Chairez has really good submission ability. Joshua Van didn't get subbed in that matchup. Now, again, I don't remember that matchup super freshly right off the top of my head. And his only loss is to Charles Johnson, who I think is kind of like a top 15 gatekeeper for the flyweight division. Before that, Felipe Bunes, I believe he started off, no, it was Kevin Borjas. Started off slow, lost the first round, came back in the second and third, and really started pouring it on. I think the boxing and takedown defense of Joshua Van will get this fight done for him. I'm going to pick Joshua Van. I could see him getting a finish, but just being Rei Tsuruya, hasn't taken a lot of damage. He's 10-0 undefeated. I'm going to say he sticks it out and loses a decision. I'm going to go Joshua Van. I'll say 30-27 decision. I could see maybe Tsuruya getting around with some of the grappling and maybe not a lot happens on the feet. It would have to be most likely the first round, but I'm going to go Joshua Van to get it done via decision. Next fight on the card, we have the featured prelim. We have Curtis Blaydes versus Rizvan Kuniev. Now, I know the easy pick is Curtis Blaydes. I know everyone's going to say, Curtis Blaydes, Curtis Blaydes. Kuniev hasn't beaten anyone, this and that, blah, 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 blah. And maybe I'm going with that pick, okay? But hear me out. Heavyweight is garbage. I repeat, heavyweight is garbage. It's not good. Nobody is good. The heavyweight division is dead outside of Tom Aspinall, basically. Okay, throw in a couple other names. Volkov, gone. Blaydes is one of those guys who I've considered who's decent, but man, he has bad fight IQ. But how do you pick against him in this fight against a guy in Kuniev who, he beat Hugo on Dana White's Contender Series and, finished him with a body shot. But even his previous Dana White's Contender Series fight against Edwin Santos, which I watched, didn't look particularly great in that fight. Eventually got a finish. I believe his fight against Renan Ferreira, I think that he tested positive for something. I don't have it on my screen right now, so that fight's now a no contest. So Rizvan Kuniev fits in with the skillless heavyweight division, but I think Blaydes is a step above those really, shitty fighters for the heavyweight division. And you're talking about a Kuniev who I believe it was for the Santos fight. They said he cut 66 pounds to get the heavyweight. Typically that's not going to be a good look when you got the same physique as me going into a UFC fight. But I don't think it's a blowout for Blaydes, to be honest. Let me take that back. I think Kuniev could win, is what I'm trying to say, because the heavyweight division is so garbage. There's nothing guaranteed. Kuniev has okay grappling. I don't think he's out grappling Blaydes. I don't think Kuniev has the grappling of a Jalin Turner. He's shown that very clearly. He does have decent power. Blaydes even gets, got KO'd by Derek Lewis. I know that sounds crazy. Like, oh, Derek Lewis has nuclear power. But Derek Lewis isn't the best striker, per se. So Kuniev could catch him on the feet and KO him. But I think the smart pick, you just have to go Curtis Blaydes. I could see Curtis Blaydes taking him down and ground and pound and TKOing him. Matter of fact, that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go Curtis Blaydes first round TKO. Curtis Blaydes also a massive heavyweight. And he's not a fat, unathletic heavyweight. He actually has some muscle on his 265-pound frame. He's strong. I think the UFC is just putting Kuniev in there to try to hopefully build up another heavyweight prospect because heavyweight's absolutely dead. But I think Blaydes is probably going to turn him back. But don't be shocked if Blaydes somehow gets KO'd. If Blaydes just finds a way to fumble certain fights. So I'm going to go Curtis Blaydes. I'm going to say he takes him down early and finishes him. I know this guy's from Dagestan, Russia. I haven't seen elite level grappling out of him. And usually at heavyweight, you're just a scrub. So until he proves me otherwise, I'm going to assume he's a scrub. And I think Curtis Blaydes losing 2 out of his last 3. It's Tom Aspinall, Sergey Pavlovich. No shame in that. I'm going to go Curtis Blaydes to get it done via first round ground and pound TKO. It'll be a brutal KO with like nasty elbows from guard. I'm picking Curtis Blaydes. Next fight on the card, opening up the main card, we have Bobby Green versus Mauricio Ruffy. Or Ruffy. I don't even remember how to pronounce his last name right now. I'm drawing a blank. I'm not calling him King Green. I'm not calling another man King, okay? Bobby Green has been around forever. I'll never forget. I went to a pay-per-view. I think it was 2014. Bobby Green was supposed to be on that card, okay? And he was in the UFC for a while. He was like a UFC vet in 2014. He's lost 2 out of his last 3, got submitted easily by Paddy Pimblett, beat Jim Miller, and got KO'd by Jalin Turner. Mauricio Ruffy has a lot of hype behind him. I think a lot of it's unwarranted. But I think a lot of the time when you get this crazy hype, like Joe Rogan's like, Ruffy's a Conor McGregor. Look at his skill. Look at his stance. Look at his movement. Blah, blah, blah. Look at his striking. Oh my God, he's reminding me vintage Conor, this and that. I think sometimes us as fans hear that overestimation and we immediately like underestimate them in a way. I think it's a trap a lot of us fall into. There's no way I'm picking Bobby Green. We're going Bob Green. There's no way I'm picking Bob Green to beat Mauricio Ruffy, especially at 38 years old, going on 39. He's 38 and a half to be fair. Coming off 2 losses via finish out of his last 3. I'm picking Ruffy to get it done. Bobby Green doesn't have great fight IQ. Look at the Paddy Pimblett fight. Basically fell right into the submission. I think he thinks he's better than he is. And he's getting old. And it's not just that he's old age-wise. He has a lot of miles on him as well. When you've been around as long as Bob Green has been around, you take a lot of damage regardless win or loss. He's 32-16-1 overall record. That's a lot of fights. What's that off the top of my head? What's that, 49 fights? Yeah, I think that's 40. That's 49 fights. Damn near 50 fights where Ruffy's 11-1 and has won 11 out of those. Okay, he's only lost 1 fight. And that was a while ago. He's 28 years old, arguably heading to his prime. Reach and height advantage, 4-inch reach advantage, 1-inch height advantage. Bob Green is 38 years old, going on 39. He's primarily a striker. Looking at the way Jalin Turner absolutely bodied him, I think that took years off his life. And I think Ruffy will be able to go in there and style on him. And I think the reason they're opening up the main card is the UFC really likes Mauricio Ruffy. And they want to give him that like statement win on a big pay-per-view card. They did it with Paddy Pimblett against Bob Green. Now they're going to do it with Mauricio Ruffy. I'm going to pick Mauricio Ruffy first round KO. I just think he's too slick on the feet. Bob Green keeps his hands down. He was a good defensive striker at one point in time. He had a very competitive fight with Rafael Fiziev, who also fights on this card. But he's getting older. When you get older, your reflexes start to go. And the fact that he's been chinned brutally by Jalin Turner, and then the referee was like, he wanted to see a dead body, and that wasn't that long ago. I don't think he can outstrike him. I don't think he can outgrapple him. I think Ruffy's movement's going to be a problem for him. I think Bob Green, again, thinks he's better than he is. I think he's going to be taunting on the feet, probably get brutally KO'd in the first round, and everyone will be pointing and laughing at Bob Green as Mauricio Ruffy styles on him and elevates his name, opening up the card on a massive pay-per-view. So I'm going to go Mauricio Ruffy first round KO. Next fight on the card, the fight you guys have all been waiting for me to break down. Amanda Lemos versus Iasmin Lucindo. Guys, you know I'm not against women's MMA. Okay, you know I'm not against women's MMA. Why are we putting, or why are we putting token women's MMA fights on big pay-per-views? This does not deserve to be on the pay-per-view card. Put Curtis Blaydes on the pay-per-view main card. Put Joshua Van on the pay-per-view main card. I guess because the rankings, you can kind of justify it. It's not a horrible fight. Lemos is actually pretty exciting. But I don't know. I don't like the flow of this. I've been notorious for complaining about the bout orders, throwing Bo Nickel, Cody Bumdage. At one point, it was above Charles Oliveira on the main card of UFC 300, but let's not even talk about that right now. Listen, Amanda Lemos, Iasmin, Lucindo, I think it could go either way. I'm leaning Lucindo. She's 23 years old. Lemos is 38 almost, about to turn 38. Lost to Verna Jandiroba, not a horrible loss, got submitted there. Last win was Mackenzie Dern, lost to Weili Zhang before that. This is a big test for Iasmin Lucindo. It could end up being like, this could be one of those fights where afterwards everyone's like, fraud check. Lucindo won a split decision against Marina Rodriguez, who I believe is on her way out. Before that, beat Karolina Kovacevic. Before that, Polyana Viana. You know what? I'm going to change my pick. I was going to go Lucindo. I'm going to go Lemos. I mean, she hasn't proved anything to me. Look at these names. Marina Rodriguez, I know she was decent at one point in time, not anymore. Karolina Kovacevic, Polyana Viana, Brogan Walker. I swear, you pick a random female off the street, 75% chance that she beats Brogan Walker. So I'm going to switch my pick to a 38-year-old Amanda Lemos. I mean, look, she's losing to Verna Jandiroba, losing to Weili Zhang, beating Mackenzie Dern. And I know Lemos or Lucindo, didn't she? No, she never fought Mackenzie Dern. Okay, never mind. I don't know what I was thinking there. Maybe I was thinking of Polyana Viana, I think. I'm going to go with Amanda Lemos. I'm going to go with her to get it via decision. Has good power in her hands. Okay. Has decent grappling. Has a decent submission threat. Lucindo's decently well-rounded as well, but you know what? I'm going to pick Lemos to get it done via decision. I'm done jumping around. I'm going Amanda Lemos via decision over Iasmin Lucindo. Usually when I switch my picks, I usually end up being dead wrong, but I'm going Lemos. She just has more experience against elite-level opposition, and we haven't really seen her completely regress. So I'm going to go Lemos decision. Next fight on the card, the featured fight on the card, a straight-up banger. We have Jalin Turner versus Ignacio Bahamondes. This fight was added kind of last minute as well. And this is a tough fight to pick. For me, I know it's easy just to count out Jalin Turner. Lost 3 out of his last 4. And, the last fight against Renato Moicano, horrible fight IQ. Literally had him finished at the end of round 1 and doesn't follow up and blames the ref. Now, granted, I think he came out and said it was something to do with Bob Green when he viciously pounded his dead body for an extra minute because the referee didn't step in. But you got to follow up. You can't make a horrible fight IQ decision like that. So I do understand you look at that. Renato Moicano. I don't think Renato Moicano is that good. I don't think he's that good at all. Before that, beats Bobby Green. He beat him on short notice. Before that, loses to Dan Hooker. Split decision, close fight, gassed out. Before that, lost to Mateusz Gamrot, close fight. Kind of got gassed out as well, but Gamrot was on short notice. I forgot who was originally supposed to fight on that card, but it was not a grappler. Gamrot was thrown in the last minute. So when you start contextualizing the losses, losing to Gamrot, losing to Hooker aren't that bad. Both of those were splits. They were close enough. They were splits. And then losing to Moicano in a fight he should have had won. Jalin Turner could play spoiler here, but Bahamondes has looked so good. He's coming off a win of Manel Torres. I actually picked Torres in that fight, because I've seen Christos Giagos landing shots on Bahamondes' chin. But I'm telling you, Bahamondes looks improved with each and every fight. Had nasty power against Torres, was clipping him up, countering him well, has excellent kicks. He has that spinning back kick to the face against Roosevelt Roberts a while ago. His only loss against Ludovic Klein, where he got out-grappled, and that was almost 2 years ago at this point. Turner's not going to grapple. Also, I don't trust Turner's gas tank. Bahamondes, he's a finisher. I don't remember the last time. He hasn't gone to decision since Trey Ogden, where he got a win. Ludovic Klein, he was getting out-grappled. Also, we don't know what kind of training camps either one of these guys had, because it was thrown together on 3 weeks' notice, but they could have known prior to that. This wasn't announced that long ago. They're both relatively young. Jalin Turner's still kind of a prospect. They both have great finishing ability. I'm kind of deciding on the fly here. Both have the same reach. Both are the same height. Could this be Jalin Turner? This is a fork in the road for Jalin Turner. One way he ends up being a contender again, the other is him just kind of thrown away and tossed to the wolves and, never thought of as a lightweight contender ever again. And also we got to think about his weight cut. If he took this fight on a couple weeks notice, what's the weight cut look like? I'm going to go Bahamondes to get it done. Ignacio Bahamondes, really good striker. I think he's more equipped to go to war than Jalin Turner is because I do believe that weight cut affects his cardio. And so I think it's going to be one of those fights where early Turner could clip him and finish him, and Turner hurts you. He can snatch up a guillotine quick. He's done it plenty of times. I believe he did it against Brad Riddell. He has good submission ability. He has those long arms. He has that long frame in general. But after that first round, it just seems like his probability of winning goes down. And I know he went a hard-fought war with Gamrot and Hooker, but both those fights, he's gassing out in the later rounds. I think Bahamondes is more equipped to go to war. Bahamondes is not easy to finish by any means. He's very durable. So I could see it being close and competitive early, maybe even Turner getting the better of him in the first round. But even then, I think Bahamondes is one of those guys that every single fight I see him improving. I said this about Charles Oliveira for a long time before he ever got close to a title, and eventually became a champion. Where Bahamondes in his last fight against Torres, he looked slick on the feet. He was throwing nasty spinning kicks to the body. He was landing upstairs, landing counters, not gassing himself out. Once he dropped him with a shot, looked for the finish, but then kind of took his foot off the gas and then eventually found the finish a little bit later, not that long later. I just think the fight IQ is better. I think the recent performances are better. I think the cardio is better, and I think he's just more equipped to go to war. If it does end up, if the going gets tough, I got Bahamondes 10 times out of 10, 100 out of 100. Okay, what did Chandler say? 9 times. I think he said 9 times out of 10. Something he beats Charles Oliveira. I'm going Bahamondes to get it done. Does he finish Jalin Turner? I'm going to say no. He was able to survive the onslaught from Gamrot and Hooker. He got finished by Moicano, but that was on the ground. Bahamondes is primarily going to strike. I'm going to go Bahamondes to win, and he's really going to be pouring it on late. And it's going to be one of those fights like Dan Hooker, where Dan Hooker was looking for a finish late. I think Bahamondes will be looking for a finish late. He'll clearly win the second and third round, maybe the first round as well. And then later on, Turner's gas tank is really going to be horrible from the weight cut, from the short notice, and eventually he's going to go up to 170. And we're going to see how Turner can really perform up a weight class. I'm going to go Bahamondes to get it done via decision. 29-28 decision, 30-27 decision. Gets it done pretty clearly in the later rounds, maybe even takes the first round. But I think the first round will be very competitive. I just think Bahamondes, I trust him more. I think his striking is getting better with each and every fight. So I'm going to pick him to beat Jalin Turner and become a contender in the lightweight division. Next fight on the card, co-main event, Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev 2. This fight is kind of weird. I think you can make arguments to pick either one of these guys, to be honest. Because Rafael Fiziev, on a 2-fight losing streak, hasn't fought in a year and a half after a knee injury against Mateusz Gamrot. That in itself is hard to pick, and plus he's coming in on short notice. But then you have Justin Gaethje. How can you forget his lifeless body laying on the canvas against Max Holloway? His nose got destroyed in that fight. His eyes got destroyed in that fight with 2 brutal eye pokes in the first round. And Gaethje's taken a lot of damage over the course of his career. I watched him in World Series of Fighting. I watched those wars with Luis Palomino. I've watched the wars he's had in the UFC against like Michael Johnson and Chandler and Dustin Poirier. And he's taken so much damage. And he got the light shut off badly against Gaethje. The nose damage, if you guys have been watching for a while, you realize a lot of these guys, they get their nose busted up real bad one time and they're never the same. Happened to Rory McDonald. Now, I think you could say, well, Fiziev's coming off a knee injury, year and a half off, took it on short notice. Yeah, you can make that argument. He lost the first fight as well. I don't even know why I didn't even get into that yet. But he was looking for a fight. He was even complaining online that nobody was accepting a fight with him. So you look at that, I'm assuming Fiziev was in fight shape. Now, did he have to cut extra weight that wasn't normal for him to get to this fight? Maybe. We'll have to see how he looks at weigh-ins. And he did lose the first fight, but he was looking good and kind of just started to tire out late, and Gaethje started to find his jab, and it was still a very competitive, close fight. But it's been years. It's been years since then. I mean, it's been 2 years. Gaethje's 36 years old. Fiziev's 32, arguably in his prime. I am going to take into account that I think Fiziev was in shape. I'm going to take into account that I think Justin Gaethje's nose is destroyed. They'll take one perfectly placed shot to destroy that nose again. I'm going to remember the fact that I think Rafael Fiziev is a much crisper, more technical striker than Justin Gaethje. And I'm just going to think in the first fight, Fiziev maybe was overconfident. A lot of people believe Fiziev was going to win that fight easily. A lot of people thought, okay, this is the new up-and-coming prospects. It's time to kind of eat the old guard. People were saying it with Fiziev. People were saying it with Benoit Saint-Denis versus Dustin Poirier. And I just think since then, Gaethje is on kind of regressed. And I know he doesn't have that many losses since then. He had a title fight. It's crazy how many fights he's had since then, which is crazy. I mean, oh, never mind. I'm wrong. I'm actually wrong. I was looking at it wrong. So he's had 2 fights since then where Fiziev's only had 1 fight. And he's been KO'd once. I just can't get Justin Gaethje's lifeless body laying face down on the canvas off of my mind. I think Fiziev's coming in shape, and I think Fiziev's going to win. I think Fiziev's going to finish him. I think Gaethje's going to get his nose busted up again, probably in the first round. And it's going to be one of those times where it's like, okay, Gaethje doesn't want to fight anymore. He's going to be shaking his head. He's going to be grabbing his nose. Fiziev is going to say, you know what? This is a huge pay-per-view. This is a huge opportunity on short notice. Let me go out there and try to look for a finish. I'm going to pick Fiziev to get it done in the rematch, first round KO. I think this is the end of Gaethje's career. I told you guys, how many times have I said, you got to appreciate these guys when they're in their special moment in time. And I think Gaethje's special moment of time has now passed. I mean, think about the perception after he KO'd Dustin Poirier with that head kick, questionable head kick, okay? Think about the perception that, oh, he's going to fight Islam and this and that. And then, boom, brutally KO'd by Max Holloway for the BMF title. And then, he took time off, which is good on him. He's talking about retirement. Fiziev's been in there with him before. He knows what to expect. Gaethje's another 2 years older. Fiziev, I do worry about the ring rust, considering he's been out for 1.5 years since the Mateusz Gamrot fight. But I thought Fiziev was a legit title contender up until that point. And I know he lost to Gaethje. It was a close fight. Loses to Gamrot, but not really because the injury happened fairly early in the fight. We don't really know how the fight was going to play out. But I think Fiziev is going to go out there and look to really land on Justin Gaethje early and often. And I think Gaethje, it's not that Gaethje's slow. It's just that I think Fiziev is much faster. And I think Fiziev is much more dynamic. And I know Gaethje has those brutal leg kicks and, especially when he was throwing straight shots against Fiziev in the first fight, he was having success. But I think 2 years later, Fiziev's been pining for a fight for the last 3-4 months. So it's not like he hasn't been ready and he got thrust into this opportunity last minute or short notice. I think he was ready. And if Fiziev is ready, I'm picking Fiziev. So I'm going to pick Fiziev to get it done. I'm going to say first round KO. I think we're going to witness the end of Justin Gaethje's career at UFC 313. I'm going to pick Fiziev he's going to land a big shot in like the first his first half of the first round. That's going to bloody up Gaethje's nose. And I think it's going to just change the whole outlook of the fight. And then Fiziev's going to be kind of marching him down and eventually find a kill shot and put Gaethje away in the first round. Late first round KO for Rafael Fiziev, if not early second round finish for Fiziev. I'm going Fiziev in the rematch over Justin Gaethje. But we'll see. I mean, Gaethje, a lot of people counted out Gaethje last time. I picked Fiziev the first time. But I was saying, look, Gaethje's being counted out. He could win this fight. I just, until I see him win after that Max Holloway KO, I think it's career altering. And I hear him talking about retirement now. I'm not picking him to beat a prime Rafael Fiziev. So again, Rafael Fiziev, late first round KO. Next fight on the card, we are finally getting it. Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev for the light heavyweight title. Look, I got to be honest. This is an easy title defense. This title defense borderline shouldn't even count on his record, okay? Because it's just an easy matchup for him. Oh, wait, you guys are probably confused. Sorry. Let me start over. Magomed Ankalaev is the uncrowned light heavyweight champion. And I know people are going to think I say that facetiously. He beat Jan Blachowicz for the vacant title, okay? He beat Jan Blachowicz when Glover Teixeira brutally ducked him. Glover Teixeira was offered Ankalaev for the vacant belt, and Glover said, no way, absolutely not. He ducked him. I guess like coach, like protege, Pereira's been kind of ducking him with the UFC's help for a bit. And Magomed Ankalaev beat Jan Blachowicz, and he should have had the light heavyweight belt wrapped around it. But because it was a draw, and I don't absolutely hate the draw, but I think most people believe that Ankalaev won that fight. And I thought, you could really make that case, even though it wasn't the most egregious decision. Then the following month, you have Jamal Hill, Glover Teixeira, the guy that ducked Ankalaev. Jamal Hill becomes a fake champion. And now you have Jamal Hill as a fake champion, padding the record of Pereira, getting a brutal KO win over Jamal Hill, putting him down with that left hook and then memeing on him. You have Jiri Prochazka, which I still think is a decent win, but, Jiri's like a stylistic, great matchup for Pereira, and even I thought Jiri would beat him too, because I thought he would mix in the grappling. I'm wondering if Pereira does have black magic, where he's stopping these dudes from grappling. But anyway, the point I'm trying to get to start this off is, I thought Pereira lost to Jan Blachowicz. I thought it was clear as day that he lost to Jan Blachowicz. I thought it was relatively clear that Ankalaev beat Jan Blachowicz. Therefore, Ankalaev is defending his belt against Pereira. I know people aren't going to like hearing that. And I think Ankalaev wins this fight. Now, granted, I know Pereira is the actual UFC undisputed light heavyweight champion. He's fighting number 8 Khalil Roundtree at the time, who's not even close to a title shot, who arguably lost to Dustin Jacoby. And had Khalil Roundtree grappled, he probably could have won this fight because he would have preserved his cardio, but, he had to puff his chest out and say, you know what, I'm not going to grapple, man. I'll never shoot a takedown. He could have literally took him down off the first front kick in the very first round. He dropped Pereira, literally could have went down into his guard and beat up on him because Pereira doesn't have the ability to get up. I'll never forget Israel Adesanya having the Dagestani handcuff on him. And you look at some of these wins, and I know people think, oh, you hate Pereira for saying this. But you look at some of these wins, I think he's an industry plant. I got to be honest. He doesn't beat Israel Adesanya ever in a million years if it's not for the massive size advantage, plus a questionable stoppage. And he was getting dominated in that fight, essentially. I think he had one very close round, but other than that, it was clear Adesanya won all those rounds. Even got saved by the bell in the first round, otherwise he would have got KO'd there. Okay, he has a win over Sean Strickland. I think Sean Strickland's massively overrated, and that was before he was champion. He loses to Jan Blachowicz, in my opinion. Jiri's forced back quickly from a catastrophic shoulder injury after a 2-year layoff, wins the first round, and then gets a questionable stoppage. Then they forced Jamal Hill back from an Achilles injury. And, he wasn't ready. I don't think he was ready. I think Jamal Hill would have been better off with that excuse. I wasn't ready, which he's now said. And don't get me wrong, I still think Pereira has good wins, okay? He beats Jiri Prochazka on short notice again. Then he beats Khalil Roundtree. I think this resume is a bit overrated when you use it to analyze certain matchups. And I know Ankalaev doesn't have the best resume, okay? Alexander Rakic, I think it's a decent win. Wasn't a great fight. I swear Rakic was trying to make it boring. Someone asked him to make it boring. KO over Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker super chinny. Pereira would KO him easily. Then you have the illegal knee against Johnny Walker. Then you have the Jan Blachowicz draw, which I thought he won. You have the fight where he brutalized Anthony Smith. That was 3 years ago. That was a much better Anthony Smith than the dead body we have today. But that was kind of the first time Anthony Smith decided he was going to curl into a ball. But I think Magomed Ankalaev, I think he's just too good, man. I think he's way too good for Alex Pereira. Pereira has dog shit wrestling. He can be taken down with ease. And he may be a very good offensive striker. He gets tagged quite a bit. Roundtree dropped him. Israel Adesanya brutally KO'd him and would have KO'd him in the first fight too if he wasn't saved by the bell. Jiri was landing good shots with his wild, wonky striking, which I don't think is horrible. I don't think that's like a massive hit to Pereira at all. But I'm just saying. Jamal Hill gets brutally KO'd. Okay, Jamal Hill hadn't offered no resistance, but again, he was forced in there on short notice coming back from a catastrophic injury. If Ankalaev mixes in the wrestling, it's a wrap. It is over. Ankalaev, just because he's Dagestani doesn't mean he's like this elite level wrestler, and he doesn't need to be. He does not need to be. Because he's an elite striker who has very good grappling and wrestling. He's 32 years old, where Pereira's 37, about to be 38. Fair enough. Ankalaev is about to be 33. Age doesn't matter as much in the bigger divisions like light heavyweight, but still, Pereira's going on this great run now. It's bound to end. You have to appreciate these guys in the moment in time they're in when they're special, because like that, it's over. I think it is over for Alex Pereira on Saturday at UFC 313. I think Ankalaev goes out there and wins this fight, and I'm very, very confident that Ankalaev wins this fight for a multitude of reasons. First off, Ankalaev is southpaw. So Pereira is only going to have that lead leg kick, which he doesn't tend to use a lot. He used it a bit against Khalil Roundtree. It's not as effective. It's not as effective than when he uses that back leg to chop your lead leg. He has to use his front leg to chop your front leg now that he's fighting a southpaw. Ankalaev is an elite level striker. I think he's going to find that straight left often. He has excellent reflexes. He has good head movement. It's very rare that Ankalaev gets caught flush. Ankalaev has one loss on his record. It's a Hail Mary submission from Paul Craig in a fight that he was dominating. So you're going to tell me Ankalaev goes from essentially never getting clipped to all of a sudden Pereira is going to go out there and put him out with ease after Roundtree, which I don't want to give Roundtree a participation trophy here. I think a lot of people are doing that a little bit too much. But I'm kind of diminishing Pereira instead. I'm looking at Roundtree, who I do not think is that good. And he's winning 2 rounds against Alex Pereira pretty clearly and dropping him. You take that and think of it, think of Roundtree against Ankalaev. Roundtree would have absolutely no chance against Ankalaev. And you also, I'm telling you right now, if Ankalaev grapples at all, it's over. He could easily take him down and probably finish him via submission or ground and pound. If he strikes, that's where it gets interesting, because he's kind of been playing mind games a bit, that he's only going to strike, and then he's been posting recently he's going to grapple. I hope you're training for this. I swear Pereira has some black magic where he convinces these guys just to strike with him, and that's where it gets interesting, because then Pereira does have a very good chance to win with that left hook. But even then, I'm still pretty confident in Ankalaev. Ankalaev's hard to hit. He's super defensively responsible. He's a great counter striker. He has big power in both of his hands. And if he just mixes in the grappling a little bit, I think it'll open up the success with the hands and with the striking in general. And I just think unless Pereira really batters that leg early and often, which again, he doesn't have that back leg kick where he can do heavy damage to that lead leg. And even if he does, Ankalaev will start grappling more, will start grappling more and start grappling sooner, depending on how soon that leg gets battered. But there's no doubt Ankalaev is practicing checking leg kicks nonstop. And Pereira's not a guy that's going shin to shin like Jan Blachowicz did in their fight. So I think the path to victory for Pereira obviously has to be KO. I don't see him winning a decision. I don't see him, winning via submission. It has to be a KO, which fair enough, Pereira finds a bunch of KOs. But I just think against Ankalaev, it's hard to find his chin. Pereira's getting older. He's slowing down. He took a decent amount of damage against Khalil Roundtree. They tried to handicap Ankalaev. The fact that it's going on during Ramadan, I don't think that's going to work. The way the timing's matching up. I think Ankalaev knows this is his one opportunity. This is his one shot. And I just think Ankalaev's better everywhere. Okay, pure kickboxing. Okay, Pereira's got an advantage, but it's not like a crazy significant advantage. Ankalaev's super elusive on the feet, has good footwork, has good head movement. He's not going to sit there just squared up in a Muay Thai stance like Khalil Roundtree. And even then, Pereira was having trouble and wasn't able to chop the legs that much because he was a southpaw. And Khalil Roundtree was getting dangerously close with that straight left. I think early Ankalaev is going to try to strike, and maybe he's finds success and gets lulled into a sense of security and then gets KO'd. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Ankalaev's probably going to strike, maybe mixing the grappling a little bit. People are going to say, boo, you broke your promise, boo. But here's what I see. Even if Ankalaev's able to get some ground and pound and some control, maybe he does. I don't think he finishes him in the first round. I don't think he's going to finish him in the first round. And I think in the second round, with maybe a takedown in his mind, I think Ankalaev is going to land a straight left. My prediction for this fight is Magomed Ankalaev, second round, brutal KO. Pereira moving up a weight class, maybe it refreshed his chin. But I don't know. He got rocked by Roundtree. He's getting older. He's taking damage. And Ankalaev has good power and has decent finishing ability. People act like he's boring. He doesn't have finishing ability. He does have finishing ability. And he has way more of a variety of attacks, I feel. Whether it's mixing in the grappling, mixing in the clinch work. I think he's going to be stronger in both of those aspects of the fight. And then I could see Ankalaev coming over with like a right hook, using that to close the distance. We've seen him do it plenty of times. And then following right behind it with that straight left. And I think Pereira, even if the grappling isn't initiated at all up until this point, even if Ankalaev decides straight up, I'm going to strike with him. The black magic has worked me into striking with him. I see Ankalaev finding that straight left hand, putting Pereira down, and then following up with brutal ground and pound and putting Alex Pereira out to win the undisputed light heavyweight title. The only way Ankalaev loses is if he gets way too crazy reckless. He gets his leg battered to the point his mobility is hindered. He doesn't grapple. And then he lets Pereira walk him down and beat him up against the fence and catches him with a big left hook and puts him away. Other than that, Ankalaev has this. I'm very confident that Ankalaev gets it done. And, you know, as much as I hated the UFC not putting this fight together sooner, we kind of owe them for it because I feel like it's made this fight bigger. And it's going to be awesome to see. I'm really excited to finally see this matchup. I think Pereira could get it done, but I don't think it's a very good probability because, again, let's say worst case scenario, Pereira's just boxing him up in the first round, kicking the legs and ripping to the body, and he lands a left hook and maybe stings him a little bit, snaps his head back, and he's pumping the jab and he busts up the nose. Ankalaev can go heavy grappling mode like he did against Jan Blachowicz, and I think he can easily outgrapple Alex Pereira. And I don't think Pereira has that significant of a striking advantage to make that happen. But I'm going Magomed Ankalaev, second round KO, throws a right hook, uses it to extend the combination and close the distance, lands a straight left on the chin, puts Pereira down, gets on top of him, brutal ground and pound KO, second round. Magomed Ankalaev is your new light heavyweight champion. I cannot wait for this card. I'll be live for UFC 313 if you want to watch and see me watch and react to Magomed Ankalaev winning the belt against Pereira because I'm so confident. I would say 95% confident Ankalaev gets it done. And maybe this ages horribly. Maybe it does. We'll see. I'm sure the comments, people come back, man, you horrible pick. I think it'll be another victory lap. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.